This is a conference meeting of the City Council of the City of Orange Township held in Council Chamber, City Hall, 29 North Day Street, Orange, New Jersey, on January 21st, 2020, at 7:07 p.m. Roll call. Councilman Coley?
Present.
Councilman Jackson?
Here.
Councilman Johnson Jr.?
Here.
Councilwoman Summers Johnson is absent. Councilwoman Williams stepped out of the room. Councilwoman Williams? Councilwoman Wooten?
Here.
Council President Eason?
Here.
Also present is Joyce Lanier, the city clerk, Chris Hartwick, the business administrator, Gracia R. Montillis, the city attorney, Marty Mays, planning and public works, Niall Clements, on behalf of the finance department, Marlon G. Towns, legislative research officer, Lisette Sanchez, record support technician. Please stand for a moment of silence. Amen. Thank you. Please be apprised, anyone wishing to discuss agenda or general items shall sign one book. Each person signing the book will be allowed to speak for a maximum of 5 minutes. The requirements of NJSA 10:4-9 et seq, the Sunshine Law, has been met. A notice of this meeting was published in the Star Ledger on July 5th, 2019, and the record transcript on July 11th, 2019, posted on the bulletin board in City Hall and filed in the office of the city clerk. There are no matters for discussion.
Madam Clerk, I just have a proclamation I would like to read into the record, if you don't mind.
We discussed that earlier. We're gonna wait and see if the family shows up and your church members.
I don't think they are, but I just wanted to just go ahead and,
So if they do, then we will read it then. So-
no, I would just rather just do it now, Council President, if you don't mind, just to
But
get
I
it out
thought
the
the
way.
message I got said they wanted to hear it read.
Yeah, I know, but I don't think anyone is gonna, come out and,
Well, how about we discuss the resolutions and ordinance and then come back? Give them-
we can do that.
Okay,
Okay.
And I'm
just
sorry,
in case.
Council President,
Yes.
to the point, did you, were you able to pull a list? Because we also, the city council also did a resolution. So that's why, I thought that if they didn't show, we were gonna invite them back so we can properly present it to them. Were you able to pull a list, clerk?
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you bring it to me, please, so I can see the
She's gonna pull it
resolution
now?
number?
Yeah.
But let's move the meeting and then we'll come back to that. Okay?
Fair enough, thank you.
All right.
Are there any resolutions or ordinances on tonight's agenda that you wish to discuss?
30,
Councilman Coley?
yeah, 31-2020, Council President. What is the,
Before you begin on that one, that's
Yes.
going to be postponed to the next meeting. The BA said that he would bring back more documentation,
okay,
correct?
so this is being pulled?
Yes, we're pulling out.
And then I'll provide the additional documentation.
Okay,
31-2020.
okay, and when you bring it back, can you just include the total amount that is owed?
Sure.
Thanks.
Any other council members?
Council President,
Yes, Councilman Jackson.
thank you, Council President. I am going to ask a question about ordinance 60-2019, amending the Lincoln Avenue Redevelopment Rehabilitation Plan. And my question is regarding the documents from the Nishawayne Group. Shall I tell you what they are to see if you're willing and able to answer? All right. The first one is on page 8, under section 3.3, compatibility with state and local plans. And I wanted to ask about number 6. It says, this plan shall supersede all provisions of the Orange Township zoning ordinance that are specifically addressed herein. And I wanted to know what those are that are specifically addressed herein. And where it says,
I'm sorry, Councilman Jackson, I'm sorry, where you at, sir?
Okay, I'm in the 60-2019.
I got
It's
that.
in the back section of the
Because you said
document-
page 8 and page 8.
It's page 8 of the document provided by the Nishawayne Group.
Okay, gotcha, okay. In the back document, not
Yes,
the
in the
first
back
document.
part.
Not the first document, okay.
That's correct.
All right, go ahead, I'm sorry.
All right, and I'm looking at number 6, where it's referring to superseding provisions of the City of Orange Township zoning ordinance, and it says that are specifically addressed herein. I wasn't sure exactly where those were. And the sentence a few below regarding the planning board alone shall have the authority to grant deviations, waivers, and/or variances as provided herein. I wanted to know about those 2 particular provisions to start.
Okay, so just give me the page numbers again.
Okay, this is in the Nishawayne Group section on page 8. In the 3.3, compatibly with state and local plans, number 6. Where it refers to superseding the zoning ordinance and granting authority of the planning board to grant deviations, waivers, and/or variances as provided herein.
Right, so whenever you have, or trigger, whenever you trigger the applicability of a redevelopment
Yes.
plan,
Yes,
because somebody could come in and build in a redevelopment zone but not trigger a redevelopment plan,
yes,
all right? If you trigger the redevelopment plan, then it is the plan that controls over any conflicting law or provision of any ordinance. And the only entity under the redevelopment and housing authority law that is permitted by statute to grant deviations from the agreed-upon plan is the planning board.
The rationale for that is because we identify it as a redevelopment area, that the part of the process of the administration negotiating the plan or just, and they go through this process, that's where that is actually.
Well, I would say it a little bit differently.
All
I
right.
would say that it's analogous to the planning board's power to grant a variance from the zoning ordinance. In effect, the plan, the redevelopment plan, becomes the governing zoning ordinance.
Okay.
And if you're going to deviate from that, it's the planning board that must approve that, just like they would have to approve a variance under the zoning ordinance.
And so they wouldn't have to go back to the zoning board.
Correct.
The planning board is a one-stop. All right, thank you very much. I also have a question regarding Resolution 29-2020, which is a resolution authorizing award of a contract with the Nishawayne Group, et cetera. Thank you.
Councilman Jackson?
Yes.
You're getting the amended version, so you want to use the amended one to make sure.
What's your question? Yeah.
Well, what my question is really, in remembering that we at one time had a city planner on staff, and looking at this is a one-year contract for $250,000, I said, what is the rationale? Is this more expensive than having a planner on staff, or what is the efficiency or effectiveness of this particular
So
resolution?
clearly, it's more expensive,
Yes.
but it's also more efficient.
All right.
There, as the word gets out, that Orange is being aggressive about redevelopment planning.
Yes.
And about utilizing the opportunity zones to foster development. The number of interested parties acquiring and/or speculating in land has grown dramatically. So the number of areas where we're looking at creating redevelopment zones has also grown, as evidenced by the master plan that was approved earlier in the year.
Yes.
People don't either know or appreciate the amount of work that goes into actually creating a redevelopment plan.
Yes.
It's a multi-step process. It involves looking at a whole host of properties, making judgments about those properties, writing it up, conducting public hearings, writing reports, and then codifying all of that in an ordinance or
Yes.
the plan itself. So, yes, there is more work here. What is covered by this contract includes the zoning ordinance,
Yes.
which will be discussed with you at the next February meeting, and then will be introduced thereafter with a couple of public opportunities for comment and consideration of potential revisions. They have to attend all of that.
Yes.
They have to do the presentations. They did the drafting under the supervision of certain administration. And we have a number of redevelopment study areas that they're looking at, and the expansion of some other areas that have already been established. So that's, the efficiency comes in because they're also advising your planning board. So having the people who have actually drafted the ordinance, done the studies, advising the planning board as well as the administration makes for a more efficient process. That's not to say, as I have said before, that at some point we don't reach a point where we have things buttoned up sufficiently that we could go back to relying upon primarily an in-house planner with a much smaller contract for an outside planning firm. And that's the direction I'd like to head. That's the direction that the mayor would like to head. And that's where we're going. But there are a lot of things. Remember that we hadn't done a master plan in decades.
Yes.
We haven't done a comprehensive zoning ordinance in decades. So that's a lot of change.
And just considering the workload, they would provide a number of staff that could manage it in an efficient way. I get it.
Yes.
I had one more question, just on the first whereas clause on the second page regarding reportable contributions. It says in the previous year. Is that a standard, just 1 year review, or it doesn't matter if it's ever the case?
I have to defer to the city attorney.
Okay.
City Attorney?
All right, it's in the first whereas clause on the second page regarding, it says, they must certify that it has not made any reportable contributions to a political or candidate committee in the city in the previous year. And I was just wondering if 1 year is the standard amount of time.
Yes.
All right. That's the end of my questions regarding that particular. Thanks for your answers. Could you, but while we had the 29 on, are we going to address can we address the amendments, or is
We
it?
took out a whereas clause that
Okay.
was suggested to be taken out by the city council's budget consultant.
Okay,
The whereas clause was,
Number 4 on the second page.
which read, whereas to secure funds for the fulfillment of this contract, the temporary budget must reflect the total obligation pertinent to the budget year. We don't think that's necessary
Okay.
in view of the next whereas clause, which says that funds are available for the purpose in an account designated, and that account is 1/26 of the total budget based
Yes.
upon the temporary budget. So we all know that when we do the final budget, we have to include funds.
thank you. The next one I have is regarding resolution, an emergency resolution 33-2020. I understand it involves a particular issue that may require, I don't know. I just want to know what the circumstances of this particular incident. Can we say that in open meeting?
Sure, well, it's multiple incidents.
Yes.
So to be clear, I returned from vacation to discover that we had only one engine in service. Another engine, I knew before I went away, a few days before I went away, that another engine had been involved in an accident, and that engine was going to be out of service for some time. Prior to leaving, I had directed that it be taken to the appropriate diagnostic center at Firefighter 1. It turned out that they could not provide a comprehensive assessment of the damage without getting the truck to a special place where it could go up on a lift. Obviously, a lift for a truck that size is not easy to find. However, while I was away, 2 additional pieces of apparatus went down with maintenance issues, one of which is going to take a fair amount of time to replace. I immediately spoke with the QPA and the fire director and the mayor, declared an emergency because I can't have just one fire apparatus available to respond to fires.
Certainly.
As a result of declaring the emergency, we sought out whether or not we could borrow a piece of apparatus from any of the neighboring communities. And we even called some that are not neighboring. Unfortunately, None of them had a spare apparatus that would work or meet our needs. So we found out that this company actually exists for the purpose of filling this void. They're the only one in the state of New Jersey, I'm told. We inquired of the leasing arrangements. We agreed to lease a truck immediately, which is why this is an emergency, because I didn't have authorization.
Yes.
Which is what emergencies are for.
Yes.
And I'm reporting to you that we entered into a 6-month lease for $65,000. We also attempted to buy a used truck. The one that was being suggested to us, I declined because it was 15 years old. It was a low-mileage truck, but 15 years is,
15 years.
it's
years.
just, you're buying people's problems.
That's right.
So this is a 2000, the apparatus that was involved in the accident was one of our new trucks. It was a 2015, it has less than 20,000 miles on it. The circumstances regarding the accident are the part that if the council wants to discuss that, we have to go into closed session because there is an ongoing investigation.
And that, I understand all those circumstances. Thanks for that extra information. Is this particular truck not repairable? That's still unclear.
So they wanted us to ship the truck to Louisiana, where the manufacturer's diagnostic center is. I declined to do that and located a place up in Sparta. So the truck was delivered to Sparta earlier, the end of last week. I expect a report hopefully this week. I may have it, I just haven't had a chance to get through my emails for the day, but I did see a few from fire administration. So if you give me a few minutes during the meeting, I'll check and see if there's an update.
Thank you for that. And the last one I have is regarding the resolution 36-2020. And this might require, confidential meeting, but I just wonder what are the claims regarding this particular case? That's authorizing the extension of a contract in the matter, Corey D. Talaferro, Administrator ad prosequendum. of
You'd have to
Sophia's-
discuss that in closed session.
Right,
That's
you
what I
can't do
thought.
that.
It's a
Right.
particular issue
Yes.
raised by the nature of the estate.
All right. That's all I had, Council President. Thank you.
Council President, if I may? Thank you for recognizing me, Council President. If the BA wouldn't mind indulging me on a 2020 again, I just have a couple more questions.
Sure.
You sufficed about 75 to 80% of the questions that I had going into to the meeting. I know when we were dealing with the planning company, with when we was going through the master plan, some other things, we had something that we could measure that we knew was going to be a clear end date. And so therefore, even when we had to add more money to the pot, we knew clearly that things needed to be done. And the measurable point would be them presenting us a complete a master plan. My only concern for when we do these $250,000 odd projects and so forth to people that have to submit a finished product, quantifying the payments out when work is done, and staying on top of invoicing to make sure they're accountable for what they're invoicing us for. I don't know what department does that, but clearly when we have a contract with multiple things for them to do, like on page 2 again, under the second whereas, just take for instance, project management in regards to opportunity zones for the city of Orange. Is something like that measurable, that either the town's getting money or businesses in the town are gonna benefit from these zones, or they just have that entitled that they're working on it?
So it actually is measurable, right? Because what we've done is we've aligned a lot of our redevelopment plans and areas with opportunity zones. So in the proposal, right, that we requested, we had them break down their proposed charges for each individual redevelopment plan as well, and a completion date, and we have a chart for all of that.
Okay.
And the zoning ordinance, which started to be drafted last year, which is in a form that we want to present it to the council. But that process, that public portion of the process still has to take place. So that's a component of this. There are a number of redevelopment areas and/or expansion of existing redevelopment areas that were authorized under the master plan, and those are included here. So there is a good deal of work. There is a schedule. Keeping to the schedule requires the planning board to act in concert with us. It requires the council to act in concert, et cetera. Sometimes the schedules slip. I actually am on top of this one only because I work fairly closely with the planning people and Marty on the redevelopment stuff. But I think your questions are well-founded. It's a lot of money. I do, at some point, hope to get us to a position where we can have an in-house planner and a smaller outside contract. But given the volume of work, we'd be talking years if we were putting this on an in-house planner, not
Gotcha.
months.
One last question, and I don't want to be putting you on the spot, but I am.
It's okay.
Okay. When the powers that be, including yourself and whoever put together this bid package for this work to be done, do you foresee any change orders adding to that $250,000?
Well, I'm
Could
gonna
it
tell you
possibly happen?
I mean, I'm gonna tell you the same thing I told the local finance board when they asked me if I was gonna have to be down there again, asking for an appropriation waiver. I'd love to say no to that,
Yeah,
but I'm not that silly.
gotcha.
It could happen. I will tell you that we negotiated away an overage in their billing for 2019. That was in the high five figures. So the planner does work with us. They were over budget. They didn't notify us in a timely fashion for that to be addressed with budget amendments or transfers, and we negotiated a reduction. And I thought that that showed or demonstrated their desire to continue to work with us.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, BA. Thank you, Council President. I'm finished.
That's what I'm saying. Is it too warm out there for everyone?
It's too warm for me.
Well, you can, Billy, open the door back up.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, he's gonna open the door
Councilwoman Summers Johnson arrived
at
at
7:25 PM.
Way past out.
Just leave the door open. All right. Any other council? Yes, Councilwoman Wooten.
I also have questions about 29, 2020, and I totally agree with Councilman Johnson. So my question is, when we are dealing with an amount such as this,
Yes.
is there any way that we can see a running total of
Sure.
what's being spent, and we can see what that cost is going to?
Yeah, so just so everyone's aware, I require the planner to bill us monthly.
Okay.
So I can show you monthly invoices, and I can also show you the disbursements. And if you want, I can give that to you monthly or quarterly.
Monthly would probably be better.
Okay.
Councilwoman Wooten, you-
Oh, Council President, I have one more. 28, 2020.
28?
That would be the one back from 29?
After 27?
Do a vacation.
So my question is, regarding this contract, like how often do they give us the updates for us to amend our code books, right? Because I haven't received any amendments in a while.
Got new books.
Quarterly. It should be done quarterly.
So we just got
So,
new
And we
books.
just got new books because the two companies merged.
okay. So anything that we may have, may not have received in 2019, it'll
It's
be
in
in
our
this
new
new books. Gotcha. Oh, while we're on the code, when you go on the city website and you try to pull the code from the city website, it's down, and it's
We know.
been down.
It's broken.
It's not broken on the council's website.
It works on the council website.
Yeah.
And actually, depending upon how you access it, if you do it through the website as opposed to entering E-code online, you can get to it that way.
Okay.
We're trying to fix it. The reality is that it's probably not going to get fixed until we introduce a new website in about a month.
Okay.
If you just Google E-code 360.
Oh, I go
on
through
the-
E-code,
Yeah.
but there are residents who,
Yes.
Before the record, I don't know if people heard you, on the clerk's website it is, the link is working,
Yes.
And the clerk's website is working.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm done. Thank you, Council President.
Council President,
Yes, Councilwoman Williams.
I have a question. I have a question.
Okay.
Mr., through you to the VA, Mr. Hartwick, I see that we have 34, 35, and 36, and you were not here, I don't believe with the, when the other resolutions for law firms was pulled. So I just want to reiterate that while two of these are for specific matters, that with the RFPs that went out for outside legal counsel, we're rebidding, and the standard going forward will be.
So we are going to republish an RFP for council. And the standard for all RFPs, all RFQs, and all bid specs is that they must be signed off on by the QPA prior to publication. And once signed off, they have to be published on the city's website, on the League of Municipalities website, and in the appropriate newspapers.
However, the rebidding will not affect those resolutions because they are continuing cases that are already in process. I think he stated that earlier.
That's right.
Any other comments or questions? Network Councilman Coley, you ready?
Yeah,
You want to read your proclamation
Abs-
before we
ab-
close out?
absolutely. But this heat is killing me, Council President.
We just opened the door.
Yeah.
We have a proclamation for a good friend of mine, church member. But before I read the proclamation, I just want to just say a little bit about Brother Willie Sumlar. Brother Willie Sumlar, he's a good friend, he's a mentor, he's a long-term church member of Bethel Baptist. He's a trustee, and he's just all around good and decent and great person. I think the good Lord broke the mold when he made Willie Sumlar. In 1993, when Bethel Baptist Church began its renovations, we contracted with an architect and a general contractor. Somewhere along the way, about midway through the construction of the church, some funds was mismanaged and contractor bailed out. The men of Bethel, led by Mr. Sumlar, took up where the contractor left off, and they continued the renovations of Bethel Baptist Church as what you see today. After working all day at the county, Willie, Sumlar, and some brothers, I want to say from maybe about like 6 to like maybe midnight, sometime 2 in the morning. They worked and worked and worked until the church was done. And that's just the kind of person and man that Mr. Sumlar is. And this past Saturday, the Bedford Baptist Church, honored Mr. Sumlar because we believe in giving people their flowers while they can still smell them. And I believe the council, we did a resolution, but this is a proclamation that was from the mayor's office. I'm just going to, read it. Just bear with me here. This is a proclamation honoring Willie Sumlar's service to the city of Orange and also to the county of Essex. Whereas the city of Orange Township resident Willie Sumlar was born in 1935 and grew up on a farm with his grandmother in Branchville, Virginia, before settling with his wife, Rose, whom affectionately called Toots, and their 2 sons in Orange in 1964. And whereas Mr. Sumlar started working with the county of Essex in Newark on August 12, 1957, even before the position of county executive even existed. During the tenure, he witnessed the rise of minorities and women in leadership positions in the county government who have gone on to distinguish themselves on local and state and federal levels. And whereas Mr. Sumlar has not missed, listen to this, has not missed a single day of work in his 62-year career with the county of Essex. 62 years, hasn't missed a day of work. That's just incredible. Whereas his regular, whereas he was regularly, was at work from 5 a.m., an hour as the shift started at 6 a.m. Whereas the summer of 2009, after 62 years of service, with a tool in his hand, he retired from the county as senior repairman and chairing a crowd of 200 co-workers, dignitaries, and friends. I don't know if we had an opportunity to visit the old courthouse down in Essex County. It was renovated, I think maybe 5 or 10 years ago, somewhere around there. It was all Mr. Sumlar's work. That is a part of his legacy. When you go into the old Veterans Courthouse, everything that you see that was renovated is all part of Mr. Sumlar's work. Whereas, as a trustee, he has been part of the transition as a church and welcomed the pastors, officers, and auxiliaries over the years. Whereas he has been the rock of the church as he completed some constructions. Well, that's just a small whereas right there, how it's written. Whereas he is directly responsible for the pristine condition of the church and its grounds, performing many tasks on his own time in the limelight of recognition of congregants, but in full view of his Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Whereas Mr. Sumlar's jobs, duties, both in church and in the county, make him all the purpose utility player. He did whatever he was asked and without a work order. All at once, Mr. Sumlar was a mover, repairman, carpenter, painter, custodian, everywhere throughout the church and in the county government and the courthouse and complexes. And just so you know, in our upcoming elections, when you have a problem with our vote machines, Mr. Sumlar, he's not going to be that guy to come fix it anymore because he also maintained our county vote machines as well. Whereas his work ethic, pride, and faithful service are principles to have been held up in the Orange community for young people to emulate. Whereas Mr. Sumlar's accumulated so many vacation and sick days upon retirement that he donated them to co-workers in need and still had another 10 days to spare. And whereas the county executive, Joe D., observe whether you were a long-time or new employee or just a visitor to the county complex, will he extend his kindness to you, welcome you to the county, and always ready to lend a helping hand. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Mayor Dwayne Warren hereby recognize Willie Sumlar for his outstanding dedication, honorable achievements, and his leadership in representing his community. Now therefore be it further proclaimed that Mayor Warren and the City Council, City of Orange Township, do thereby proclaim January as Willie Sumlar Day throughout the city of Orange. This is just a snapshot as to what Mr. Sumlar does for the Bethel Baptist Church. Just last week, Mr. Sumlar called me up. We had he was in there doing something, and he called me up. We had a pipe leaking in the ladies' bathroom. He called me up, and I went over there with him. We assessed the problem, and he wound up fixing the problem right there on the spot. Come to find out, after he did the repairs, his son had some concerns about his, about his father. His son lives, I believe, in Maryland and Washington, D.C. area. He called up and asked his father, "Why are you doing work?" Keep in mind, Mr. Sumlar had just had eye surgery. Just had eye surgery that morning. That afternoon, he's at the church doing work. That's the kind of person he is. Thank you.
And I spoke with Councilman Coley, that we were so honored to be there for Mr. Sumner on Saturday. And the people at the church, they just lined up to recognize Mr. Sumner for his great work. And, men of his age and his era are sometimes far and few between. But Mr. Sumner is someone in our own community that is somebody that we need to look up to and give him his props. Because today, for somebody to work 62 years without missing one day is a phenomenon, and he's a phenomenon. And Bethel Baptist Church honored him big time on Saturday, and I was just proud to be there with Councilman Coley and the Bethel Baptist Church. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
City of
thank you.
Orange and council colleagues.
Council President,
Yes, Councilman Williams.
do you want us to make remarks
For
regarding Mr. Sumler?
Would you rather do that now when his family's here so they can hear you?
So you were still gonna invite his family
Yeah.
back? Okay, I just wanted to,
I'll invite his family. Move the agenda.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Councilwoman Williams and Councilman Johnson.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting adjourned. 7:45 PM.
You guys want to continue or you want a break?
Rock and roll. Let's go. Rock and roll.
Let's get it done.
This
I thought
is a-
maybe Councilman Cooley want to stand on the door for a few minutes, no?
I'm just flashing, Council President. I'll be all right.
Okay, let's move the agenda.
This is a regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Orange Township held in Council Chambers, City Hall, 29 North Day Street, Orange, New Jersey, on Tuesday, January 21st, 2020, following the conference meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call, Councilman Coley?
Present.
Councilman Jackson?
Here.
Councilman Johnson Jr.?
Here.
Councilwoman Summers Johnson?
Here.
Councilwoman Williams?
Present.
Councilwoman Wooten? Here. Council President Eason?
Here.
Also present, Joyce Lanier, the city clerk, Chris Hartwick, the business administrator, Gracia R. Montillis, the city attorney, Marty Mays, planning and public works director, representing the finance department, Niall Clements, Marlon G. Towns, legislative research officer, and Lisette Sanchez, record support technician. The requirements of NJSA 10:4-9 et sec, the Sunshine Law has been met. A notice of this meeting was published in the Star Ledger on July 5th, 2019, and the record transcript on July 11th, 2019, posted on the bulletin board in City Hall and filed in the office of the city clerk. There are no meeting minutes to be approved. Reports, Department Monthly Revenue Collection, 2019. Planning and Economic Development for the month of July collected $71,561. For the month of August, $80,768. For the month of September, $67,421. For the month of October, $92,298. For the month of November, $63,207. And for the month of December, $67,773. There are no constable reports, there are no OPA reports. Council reports.
Anyone in the council have any reports they'd like to give at this time?
Council President?
Yes, Councilwoman Williams.
While the Finance Committee meeting minutes are before everybody, there needs to be an amendment, and I'll just, Mr. Hartwick, we talked briefly about the Highland Street, the Highland Street lease for the transit contract. Can you just give an update on that, please?
So the city has signed the lease agreement, returned it to New Jersey Transit. New Jersey Transit has incorporated the information into the lease that they needed to put before their board. It will go before their board this month. It'll then be executed and returned to us, at which point we have already prepared the bid specs for the job, correct, Marty? And we will, as soon as we have the signed agreement, be in a position to bid and award a contract.
And do we know when transit meets?
I can look it up.
Okay, so the board, so we sent a signed contract from them, the board has to approve it and sign it, send back to us, and then we can move forward with the updates of the train station. And so that, once we commence the work over at the train station, people will just pretty much have to stand outside like they do now.
So, well, there's a couple of things, right? One is, we have a walkthrough scheduled with Jersey Transit reps so that we can map out all of the logistics for interruption to the commuter patterns during construction. That walkthrough is supposed to take place, I have to look at my calendar, but it's within the next 10 days.
Okay.
And that's an important part because there will be disruption to the ordinary and normal use of the property. So we have to plan for that.
And just, could it be people maybe not be able to catch a train there and they have,
I don't think that it's going to be that. It's probably going to affect some
Okay.
parking,
Okay.
the pickup and drop-off areas,
Okay.
and potentially some exterior lighting.
okay, all right. Thank you.
Anyone else? Move the agenda.
There were no communications and petitions received. Citizen comments pursuant to Section 4-10 of the Code of the City of Orange Township. Each person addressing the council shall step up to the microphone, shall give his or her name and address in an audible tone for the record, and unless further time is granted by the presiding officer, shall limit his or her address to 5 minutes. The public is expected to conduct themselves in a proper manner. Any derogatory, abusive, or threatening statements will not be permitted. The chair will immediately rule such conduct out of order and terminate any further comments.
Just housekeeping. And I guess she read it all, so I'm not going to repeat it. Mr. Jeffrey Fell?
Good evening. My name is Jeffrey Feld, a local businessman, attorney, and mortgagee whose local business address is 268 Main Street, Orange, New Jersey. As my custom, I delivered various heads-up memos to the council. 2 of them were what I call post for events that happened after January 7th, our last meeting. Then I delivered one yesterday morning to you, emailed to you. I incorporated my questions and comments that I can't speak within the 5 minutes on. There are a lot of exhibits on there. It's been interesting the last, I say, 36 hours regarding Orange in the press. Yesterday, an article appeared, and it was republished today on the front page of the Star Ledger. regarding our city, our former deputy business administrator, the amount of money that's owed, and some other allegations. Some people might claim this is fake news. I say the public, you should just read it and you make your own decision. In addition, last night, on a political website, New Jersey Globe, an article appeared regarding the upcoming election and how various people are maybe running for two positions at the same time. And in the article, they called that position absurd. That's the word they used in the article. I tell people to look at NJSA 19:3-51, where the way I read it, there's a prohibition for running for two offices at the same time. We're going to be held on the same election in November where there's a conflict. Just look at that. There's some issues we have to talk about. As we're speaking here today, there's fights going on in the U.S. Senate about, democracy dying in the darkness, about access to documents and information. Last week there was an incident. There was a public notice saying that you could have access to looking at a file in the local planning board. I was denied access to that. I gave you as an example a document, and I think the public needs to know this. When we were last meeting, we were talking about the 9% competitive low-income housing tax credits granted to the Walter G. Phase 4 project. I provided you a copy of the summary of the project. And in that project, it indicates that Manavin Scotland is the project sponsor's council, but they also represented the city in the transaction, and we have the same issues that we have in Feld 10 about the simultaneous representation and that being a per se conflict, disqualifying conflict of interest. The reason I also raised that, I'm still waiting for the fairness expert report in the Feld 10 matter, which has been promised to the special master about a month and a half right now, and he said, I'm just looking for the status of that. In addition, the public should know that on January 10th, the city filed a foreclosure action against the hospital. I don't know, I've made requests for documents whether the transaction closed so we go acquire the defaulted loan documents. Regardless of the loan, defining the loan, defaulted loan documents, the city on January 10th filed a complaint that was dated October 2nd, 2019, seeking to foreclose on that property. I don't know how you can do that because we're going to talk about redevelopment because that property has never been developed to be subject to condemnations. As to the agenda, non-ordinance part, in my heads-up letter, I had certain questions as to certain small amounts of bills being paid. And I guess because there's been no comments, the administration has signed off on that. Also, when you look at the bill list, I'm wondering, besides myself, there's other hardware stores in Orange. The question is, why do we go to a West Orange hardware store to buy snow shovels and the snow equipment rather than using the businesses located in the city? As to the Nishion Group, we need to focus on their work product. Remember the first FBI subpoena, they were listed as a party identified on the first subpoena in 2016. Myself and various other Main Street owners, we had difficulties with them with the Main Street process, with the redevelopment plan. The amending zoning ordinance has not been adopted. Even though the master plan was approved by the local planning board in November 2018, we still don't have an amended zoning ordinance, and that's going to be something we'll talk about a little later. I think we do need to have a little more control, knowing like how much it's going to be for planning board activities that we can, the master plan, and other things like that. Because when we talk about the master plan, when we get to 595 Lincoln Avenue, one of the comments I made in August 2018, the 595 Lincoln Avenue redevelopment plan was not even mentioned in the master plan. And so when we're talking about the work that they're doing, we have to talk about that. In addition, we found out today, because they posted the agenda for the planning board, tomorrow's agenda, that they're going to pass a resolution memorializing the changes to the Central Orange redevelopment plan amendment, although you passed the ordinance. So again, I don't know how that happened procedurally. But the key is focus on the bill list questions I have as whether certain things should be pulled because they're maybe being used for political purposes, because we were told like the Toys for Tots was going to be funded by contribution. Why are taxpayers' dollars being used? Why are we paying for catering the food at certain public forums? Because that's transactional aid prevents that. And again, focus on the issue on group. Focus on the work product. Please listen to what people will be saying now and later this evening regarding the ordinance. Thank you.
Move the agenda.
Is there a motion to close citizen comments?
Move.
Councilmember Williams and Councilmember Wooten.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Council comments?
Council President,
Councilmember Summers Johnson.
I'll start with a Dr. King quote. Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. Yesterday was, normally people do a lot of give back, but for me, it was a rest day, and I was able to watch My Friend Martin with my kids, which is a really good cartoon of his life, and it helps explain what was going on, because I want to be very careful when educating my kids. I don't want them to dislike people that don't look like them. I don't want them to be mad at people that don't look like them. I want them to just understand that it's not all, it's a few. So I recommend that for anyone that wants to teach young children about Martin Luther King. It's called My Friend Martin, and it was put together by his kids and Quincy Jones. From the last meeting to this meeting, I attended the Berkeley Avenue Neighborhood Watch Block Association meeting. It was very well attended, very informative. Superintendent Dr. Fitzhugh was there, and he was explaining a lot of things to the residents, which was good because you had some new residents with little people who wanted to know more about STEM and things like that, so that was really good. On that same note, I would like to apologize to the residents on Haywood Avenue because a ball was dropped, not by me, but as being councilwoman of the South Ward, I found out late. A letter went out January 7th saying that Haywood would be a one-way, temporary one-way in the morning from 7:30 to 9 and after school from 2:30 to 3:45. I received a letter in my son's book bag. I assumed the letter was dropped on Haywood Avenue. Wrong assumption. After doing my investigation, the police thought the board was going to drop it. The board thought the police was going to drop it. So what I'm asking is if anything is done in my ward, that at least give me the courtesy, let me know, because I'll definitely drop it. I've dropped flyers with Marty for Public Works when we were getting ready to do streets. It's a good time for me to see the residents and things like that, but I want to definitely apologize. But on that note, let me also say, nothing was done for years on Haywood with cars coming up and down. We had kids hit, and I believe that it was done in an emergency situation because I know when I pick my son up, I park on Berkeley and Haywood, and there's no parking, and then you have buses trying to go down. You have big trucks, so I think they did it in an emergency thing. I'm not making any excuses, but you will definitely receive notice. I just want to tell you the times are 7:30 to 9 a.m., and then after school, 2:30 to 3:45, and it was really done just to keep the kids safe. So for the ball being dropped, I apologize. And that's it. Thank you.
Councilman Coley.
I don't really have nothing, Council President, except for Mr. Major finally got the house on Hickory Street torn down. It's only been 3 years, but you got it done. Thank you. And I leave it right there.
Progress.
Councilman Williams.
Thank you, Council President. As Councilwoman Summers Johnson started off, I'll follow suit and join a Dr. King quote. Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice. Justice at its best is love correcting everything that stands against love. One thing I like about us celebrating the legacy of Dr. King is that the community is all in from different perspectives, and even the radio station. And one of the things that the station I listen to, WBLS, they do a whole DJ weekend, but they implement his speeches into the music. And this year, and generally throughout the year, just listening to different speeches, I listened to his speech, Where Do We Go From Here, Chaos or Community? And Dr. King's speeches, generally speaking, are timeless. You can listen to his speeches and take something from it that we can apply right now, today. And I encourage, there's also the book he wrote, Where Do We Go From Here, From Chaos to Community, and then there's the speech. Very informative, very enlightening and inspiring, so I would just encourage, if you choose to listen to the speech and/or read the book. I am thankful that I had the opportunity to represent our city. Last year, we had invited a woman from Nigeria during Women's History Month here, and we did a luncheon, and we listened to some of the concerns and some of the efforts that they're doing in Nigeria. And as a result, through Assemblywoman Timberlake's office, I had the opportunity to go back and represent us, the city of Orange in Nigeria last week. It's my first trip to Africa, and being there and just listening to the efforts, and particularly the efforts of giving back to the homeless orphans that are there. I had an opportunity to visit an orphanage, and there are no words to explain when you see that, but with the words I can take, that there are immediate things that we can do to help. And while it may seem like a small effort on our part, it will be a tremendous effort on their part. And I will probably be bringing things together to see that if we can help the requests they did. And the requests were, Councilwoman, mosquito nets, old jeans for the kids, and notebooks. That would be really helpful. And so that right there was a small asking, but a big ask for them. So I'll be trying to do that over the next month. And Marty, thank you. And it's funny because I'm looking out the back of my back window. I was like, why can I see Hickory Street? Why can I see Hickory Street? And I realized, oh, the house is gone. So thank you, and just keep us abreast of. I don't know if the owner is still involved. What will be going on from as we go forward. And Council President, thank you very much.
Councilman Jackson?
Thank you, Council President. I'd like to also mention that I was at the meeting that Councilwoman Summers Johnson went to. It was very exciting. It was nice to see everyone in there, to listen to the superintendent talk about all the progress that's coming to the Board of Education in Orange. It was a very well-attended and exciting event. Also, in considering Dr. King and his sacrifice, the books that he wrote, Why We Can't Wait, and also I would say to read his letter from Birmingham jail, to consider some of the struggle he went through as he was standing against tremendous odds, and of course, as we know, at the risk of his life. Before he was murdered, people made attempts on his life many times, and he knew that he had a higher obligation than his own safety to continue where he was leading the people who were willing to stand behind him as all those who challenged those systems of that time were in danger. It takes a lot of courage, and even today, as we see in national politics, power is being, there are things that may cost people's lives as we try to maintain the Constitution as we know it. But other than that, the progress that we're making in Orange, as we consider this development agreement, this contract for the Lincoln Avenue, there are going to be a lot of things coming down that require us to move courageously despite maybe some concern on citizens. And if we continue to educate them about the appropriateness of what we're doing, it may be easier for them to accept the change that's coming. We all want the best things for Orange, and I look forward to continue to explain the progress that's coming and serving honorably on this council. Thank you, Council President.
Councilwoman Wooten?
Council President, so I was also at that meeting on the Berkeley Avenue area. It's great to see people come out and force for their community. I met with one of the community people, key people in that group, and she is interested in bringing back the PCC. And for you, those of you who don't know what it means, it's the Police Community Council. And that's the council that bridges the gap between the police department and the community. I think that's gonna be a very great program going on in the city of Orange. It was started back in 2002, so hopefully we'll have a kickoff day sometime in February, and information will be sent out about that. I also attended services for Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday, went to St. Paul Church, had a very good program there. Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver was the guest speaker. She gave us some things to go out and do as community people, as people. And I have a concern regarding Oakwood Avenue. A resident came to me. She was concerned because she received a parking ticket when she was parked in the yellow zone. So I looked in my code book and on E-code, and I didn't see there where there's any ordinance or resolution or ordinance that stated that that could be striped there. So I guess I will ask the city attorney and the legislative research officer.
Where was it?
It is right between Oakwood Avenue and Newark topographies.
Is there a driveway or a corner anywhere near the yellow curb?
Yes.
Okay,
So-
so it might be one of the streets where we actually follow the engineering standards.
Okay.
So we're not allowed to put parking that's, and these are state guidelines, that's too close to a corner intersection or too close to a driveway or too close to a fire hydrant. Now, I'm not saying that that's the case. We will look at it. I can tell you that there are issues on many of the streets in that area as a result of changes that were made to accommodate Walter G. Alexander 1, 2, and 3. So that's an area that we've been looking at. Not, there's also an issue as it relates to parking on both sides
Right.
for some of those streets because it's difficult to get our fire trucks down them. But if you give me the information, I'll have someone go out this week.
And her concern was she parked, it wasn't striped all the way up, and we recently repainted it, and then it became striped.
Okay, so it's not by the funeral home, is it?
Yes.
Okay, that's a problem we need to address, because we didn't paint that.
Can I just piggyback on something? Can I piggyback, Council President, on that question?
Beg your pardon?
May I ask a follow-up question on that?
Sure.
Because what I was going to ask, through you to Mr. Hartwick, there are some instances on that, because I think I talked to you about it, that for instance, we don't have anything about parking under bridges, but I think the state has something. And so we don't have to have anything, but the
Correct.
state, but then it makes it confusing,
Yeah,
so.
it's the same thing with the yellow curbs,
So,
right? When we do a street, we're obligated to yellow out the curbs in conformance with the state engineering requirements and safety requirements under DOT. But that particular yellow curb, that ain't one of them.
but just in that case, would it be prudent for us to adopt the state, or what's the,
No, we just have to make sure that so, let's just be very careful here. We have to make sure that our paving projects and our parking regulations incorporate the appropriate DOT requirements.
but we don't have to have them codified?
No.
Okay, gotcha.
A civil licensed engineer has to sign off on those plans, and his sign-off should indicate that it's in accordance with those laws.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Council President, I have a letter. I already had this research. I'll give you a copy of the letter that I had generated for this.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
You finished?
I am, I'll just end. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. And thank you, Council President.
Councilman Johnson.
Council President, thank you so much for honoring me with junior dean status. I notice I'm the last person to speak in the gallery because I'm the oldest one here, so
So you had to be
I
the
feel
best.
very
Last is
special.
always the best, right?
I feel we're no longer going in alphabetical order, so I expect to have the last word at these council meetings.
The last word.
Thank you.
Exactly.
Appreciate it.
Exactly.
Councilman,
Appreciate
she's
you.
older.
I said in the gallery. I didn't say on the DS. I said in the gallery. I'll watch my words carefully. I just want to shine a little light on a big event that's coming down in town and nobody's kind of touched on it. That's the City of Township Development Summit,
Okay.
and it's starting in the East Ward on the 23rd at St. Matthew's AME Church at 7 o'clock. I would urge, now that we have really decent, nice weather in this winter, I would urge as many residents as possible to come out. There's going to be plenty of off-street parking at St. Matthew's, and I'm quite sure that all the information throughout the town will be spoken at each one of these events, not just talking about stuff in the East Ward. I think there's going to be a recap on what's been happening for 5 years in town and going forward. This is one of the things that's always perplexed me when I talk to people in the community. It's like, you're damned if you do, if you're damned if you don't. Because we get over the head with nothing's going on in our town, there's no progress. Well, here we are in a situation now where we'll start talking about what we've done the last 5 years and progress going forward. So please, come out community-wide. The South Ward is holding an event at Don Bosco Center on Nassau Street, January the 29th at 7 o'clock. I believe all the stuff's on the website.
Yes.
Okay. In the North Ward of February the 13th, it's at the Cross and Crown Christian Church. And also in the West Ward, the mighty, mighty West Ward at Seventh-day Adventist Church on February the 20th, 270 Reynolds Terrace. This is going to be very, very important because it takes all of us in this town to band together to start doing what we need to be doing as far as development. We already talking about what Michway Group's going to be held accountable for. That's all collectively, all that's tying in. And everybody that has a stake in town, it's no time to cry. We all got a stake in this. Come out and speak your words, speak your mind, and because when these resolutions and ordinances start popping and we start passing this stuff, there's absolutely no turning back. Thank you, Council President.
All right.
Council President, I just have one quick thing I forgot to ask. Mr. Mays, are we going to be doing that snow plan this year? Have you seen the letters out yet? Because we didn't receive one yet. All right, thank you.
I just want to piggyback on that, and I'll thank you for Councilman Johnson for giving out the dates. And St. Matthews has ample on-site parking, and we have security. So anybody that wants to come out, we need all residents to participate in these meetings. So when it comes before the planning board and when it comes before the council, you have already had your input, and we will consider your questions and your concerns. So this is an opportunity for you to get involved as a community. And also on tomorrow night at 7:30 is the planning board meeting. Any residents that want to come out and see what's on the agenda or what we're moving forward with, have any concerns or questions, please, 7:30 in the council chambers. And it doesn't matter whether you got a letter or you didn't get a letter saying something was going on in your area. You can come out and voice your concern about any part of the city. So we need you to come out so that at ground zero, everybody's not coming up and having concerns about what's being proposed or what has passed. Also, I want to, let me go to someone brought up the people running for dual offices. I think that was Mr. Phelan said it was absurd. And I guess when I talked to the county today, I guess they were laughing because they said only in Orange. No other city does that in county. Only in Orange these things come up and we do things that is not appropriate and is not part of the statute. That no person can run, it is prohibited by the state statute for municipal offices that a person cannot run for two positions. You can do it on the federal level, but not in the municipal level. That's the state statute. We did the research so we can clarify that. So the clerk's office will only accept position, even if you took out for two,
I'm
They're
sorry,
only-
excuse me, I don't mean to interject. I think it's the inappropriate time for you to interject your opinion.
Oh, no,
on
I'm just
anything
reading the
dealing-
statute that the
I-
legislature reached off again.
Elections is totally separate, and with all due respect,
We had that discussion today, so let's just move on. We had that today.
if anyone has any questions about elections, they should report to the clerk's office.
Or you can call the county for any elections questions. They are the governing body for any concerns that you might have. But I just wanted to state that so that that wouldn't come up again. Also, I attended a Martin Luther King Day celebration on Sunday night at Faith Temple on Main and Halsted Street, and it was what a service. Reverend Brian Lennon preached the sermon, and it geared us all up to start doing what we need to do for the city, the state, and our communities. I mean, he really told the truth, and it was a fitting tribute to Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. Because as we celebrate him each month, each year, and I'm hoping we will continue to keep his legacy alive, that we remember what he stood for. And as I go into that, I want to read something that I just read a few minutes ago real quickly. So that we all, and this is a question that was, as we have a new president of the League of Municipalities for the state of New Jersey. And the question was, what advice would you give someone just elected to local office for the first time? First, you must have a strong backbone. You will be attacked. Don't take things personally. And also, some people will attack you personally. Do what you know is right. And remember that you were elected by the people, so vote the majority of the way the people want you to vote, not the way you personally want to vote. After all, you are the spokesperson for them, not their ruler. Also, get involved around the state, not just in your community. I have met many elected officials from all around the state and have learned a great deal from them. Do not let political parties stand in your way of speaking with and getting to know any of them. You may not always agree on every issue, but you will make great contacts and get many different ideas of how things are handled in other communities. And I will say it again, our local elected officials need to sign up and read the magazine. So sign up for the magazine, get the newsletter so we can find out what's going on, because this is a great resource of some of the things that's happening in our communities, and you can read and see what other communities are doing and see how it applies to the city of Orange. And with that, I think that's all I have. We're gonna move. And also, I want to say again, I want to thank the residents for their patience for all of the streets that we have blocked off in the city. In one area in my ward, we have made a one-way, and just pay attention to the signs and make sure you're not getting tickets because you didn't read what this sign said. When it says do not enter, it means do not enter. So I want to thank you for your patience, and just continue to have patience with us, because I think these projects will be ongoing for what, the next 2 years? For the next 2 years. So we just need to, what they say, modify and redirect. So please forgive us and thank you for your patience. Let's move the agenda.
Council President,
Yes, Councilwoman
I
Williams.
just want to get a clarification, and we, it's such a prestigious thing that none of us actually announced, but the congratulations on the new president of Rutgers University, his first African-American president. And just to hear his speech today, I was like, whoa, in terms of protecting academic teachings, in terms of things may be confrontational, but the place it is in, is at the college, in academia, to do things like that. So some conversations are hard but necessary. But the clarification, Ms. Lanier, while I know this is not the place to talk about it, is there a place that, because I know that you have, and because it was brought up, you have a statement from the attorney or an opinion from the election attorney. Is there a place that you can, whether it's on your page on the website, is there some place that you can put it so that you can see what the attorney, election attorney said in terms of that dual,
And also post what our legislature resource officer legislated. so that it all can be on the website, so everybody can have access to it. We can do
Mr.
that.
Mr. Mayor, is there a place that you can do it, or how, other than if, because people may not hear you
I
under the
just
sound of the
think
voice.
It's inappropriate.
I got you,
Yeah.
but the state, but
I feel like,
But we're not gonna go into the opinions tonight, we're gonna
I'm not
move
going,
on.
I'm not going into the opinion, I'm
Yeah,
just
what
trying
I'm
to ask her
saying,
where.
You asked her to post it, her answer
That's
would
not what I-
be, yes, I can, or no, I can't, but we would delve into it tomorrow.
Okay, but
I'll
that's
put
what I'm
something together.
asking. Can
Okay.
you, can
All
you
right.
post it on the website?
She will answer you tomorrow. She will send everybody an email.
ordinance on second reading, public hearing. 60-2019, an ordinance of the City of Orange Township amending the Lincoln Avenue 595 Lincoln Avenue redevelopment and rehabilitation plan pursuant to NJSA 40A:12A-7E. Are there any citizens who wish to speak?
Murphy Wilson, 362 Hayway. Once again, I would request that council turn this down and revisit this because, as you heard last time, those of us who live there are opposed to this design for the density and the congestion, the impact on parking, and the impact on our schools. We really are, this is not good for our neighborhood. And it is also counter to the recommendations in the master plan that say that the pressure to erode the boundaries of the AA zone, which encompass the Seven Oaks planning area, should continue to be strenuously resisted. And this design is counter to that. I would hope that you would revisit this.
Mr. Feld?
Again, my name is Jeffrey Feld. Some of my questions are more procedural and to educate the public. First, on the minutes from the Finance Committee, that says the Finance Committee recommends the adoption of Ordinance 60-2019. The question I have is it the draft that was in the agenda packet, or are you talking about an amended ordinance? Because the way I read the ordinance that was in the agenda packet, I don't know what you're doing. Because you're not doing what you're doing, and it said it was drafted from someone else. Also, my heads up, I gave you a chronology of events of what's happening. And one of the concerns I have is that in September, when you directed the planning board to consider an amendment to the Lincoln Avenue redevelopment plan that wasn't described in the master plan, the original redevelopment plan that was adopted in 2011 talked about getting RFPs, and that's like on page 18. I'll find it. It's, page 16, like paragraph 14, talks about the acquisition being acquired by RFPs. The reason I say that, I mean, I can't make up some of the coincidences. Today's Star Ledger, Jersey City Redevelopment Authority is going to be selling 2 properties located in a redevelopment area.
Mr. Feld, please place the council.
Or redevelopment area, and they're getting RFPs. Now, I don't know how the requirement that was in the original plan for RFPs was removed by the plan that was drafted by Nishawan. I don't know how that happened. And the issues that we have is that the master plan was approved by the planning board in November 2018. We have not yet adopted an amended zoning ordinance. So one of the confusion
Mr. Feld?
one of the confusion that people have is when we're talking about this, the new zoning, that area, what is the requirements? Because one of the things that's happening here is the density is changing. And I don't know, when the planning board considered that, were they considering the change of the density under the old zoning ordinance or under our master plan that didn't even describe the Lincoln Avenue redevelopment area in the master plan? This is one of the problems I've had with the Nishawan group. But my suggestion is, one, look at the draft ordinance that you have. Does the last paragraph make sense? My recommendation, and I think to to ease the pressures for the school board and saying, go out for RFPs. The minimum price is $1.2 million and see what happens. That's what my suggestion would be.
Thank you, Mr. Field.
Are there any other citizens? Motion to close citizens'
Move.
comments?
Councilwoman Williams.
Second.
And Councilwoman Wooten.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion to adopt on final? Before we go into motion to adopt on final, as Mr. Feld just mentioned, the original ordinance has been amended, and I shall read the amendment into the record. It's in the now therefore be it ordained clause. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. From the fourth sentence, Lot 7, as prepared by the Nishuane Group, is found to be consistent with and designed to effectuate the township master plan, and what was removed from the original and this one, the board recommends to the governing body stays the same. Hereby approves the amended plan is added. In accordance with NJSA 40A:12A-7E, the word "and" was added, and an S was added to adopts. Those are the amendments. Is there a motion to adopt as amended?
Move.
Second.
Councilwoman Williams and Councilman Johnson.
On the motion?
On the motion.
Councilwoman Williams.
Council President, through you to Mr. Hartwick. So, Mr. Hartwick, last week, we voted down, one of the, resolutions and, ordinances that are kind of in conjunction with this. How does this affect that?
So the ordinance that you voted down at the last meeting was introduced at the same meeting in which I introduced the resolution authorizing the sale. The resolution was unanimously approved, and I stated on the record at that meeting that I was introducing the ordinance merely as a prophylactic measure in the event that someone decided to sue us because they thought that transfers of property should be authorized only by ordinance. We have an opinion from our redevelopment council on, who's actually our council on a couple of redevelopment plans, that conveyances pursuant to in furtherance of a redevelopment plan and authorized under the Redevelopment and Housing Authority law can be accomplished by resolution. It's specifically authorized. But we were introducing the ordinance as a prophylactic measure. So in effect, the council has given the administration the authority to sell the property. Pursuant to that resolution, we entered into a contract of sale, which has been executed. We have not closed on the property. The amendment to the redevelopment plan, which is what's before you now, makes the changes that are outlined in the accompanying documents, but essentially comes down to changing the density and changing some of the setback requirements. There are still some financing issues to be addressed, and some title issues to be addressed, which is why we haven't closed. We're diligently working on those, as well as some other items that we've been asked to look at. So the effect of this ordinance is to adopt the amendments to the Lincoln Avenue redevelopment plan that have been recommended by the planning board after you requested them to look at them.
Okay, so just to clarify what you said, that even though this governing body voted that ordinance down because the resolution was passed, that it was kind of a moot issue?
Kind of. And it wouldn't be if we hadn't signed a contract, but we did.
Okay. Thank you, Council President.
On the motion, Council President.
Councilman Jackson.
Thank you, Council President. I wanted to ask a question regarding, previously mentioned by Mr. Felder, page 16, the paragraph 14. The copy I have has a RFQ, not RFP. Could you describe the difference between the two?
An RFQ is a request for a statement of qualifications, an RFP is a request for a specific proposal.
And as far as the process regarding development of this property, they occur at different parts of the process, right?
They do.
And although it says RFQ, are we at the point where RFP requests will be made?
RFQs aren't even mentioned in the redevelopment and housing authority law. I don't know
Yes.
where this came from or what the legal basis for it was,
Yes.
but the RFQs are neither mentioned nor required.
Thank you for that. In terms of another question regarding this particular resolution, the issue of compliance with the master plan and maybe some threat to the AA zone, what zone is this currently in?
Currently, that area is a AA zone,
All right,
but the redevelopment area was created back in 2006 and acted upon again in 2010. So because the redevelopment plan had been created and when the master plan study was undertaken, it doesn't have to mention a redevelopment plan and/or area that already exists. If you look at all of the other areas in the master plan where we talk about redevelopment areas or plans, we're either talking about expanding them or creating them.
and as far as carving out this area as a redevelopment area, while it's in the AA zone, it has a special designation, is that correct?
Well, it's in the AA zone, but let's be accurate. It's in the AA zone facing Lincoln Avenue.
Yes.
If you stand on the corner of this property and you look up and down Lincoln Avenue, you are going to see multifamily buildings
Yes.
on
All
both
right.
sides of the street.
Okay, which are also in the AA zone.
Correct.
Thank you, sir. That's all I had, Councilman.
Move the agenda.
Roll call. Councilman Coley?
No.
Councilman Jackson?
Yes.
Councilman Johnson Jr.?
Yes.
Councilwoman Summers Johnson?
Yes.
Councilwoman Williams?
No.
Councilwoman Wooten?
Yes.
Council President Eason?
Yes.
That's 5 yeas, 2 noes, motion passed. 61-2019, an ordinance to amend the code of the City of Orange Township, Chapter 200, entitled Vehicles and Traffic, Section 200-52-1, Handicap Parking Spaces, 208 Snyder Street. Are there any citizens who wish to speak?
Motion to close citizens' comments?
Councilwoman Williams
Second.
and Councilwoman Wooten.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion to adopt on final?
Move.
Councilwoman Williams,
Second.
Councilman Coley.
On the motion? Seeing none, roll call. Councilman Coley?
Yes.
Councilman Jackson?
Yes.
Councilman Johnson Jr.?
Yes.
Councilwoman Summers Johnson?
Yes.
Councilwoman Williams?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wooten?
Yes.
Council President Eason?
Yes.
62-2019, an ordinance to amend the code of the City of Orange Township, Chapter 200, entitled Vehicles and Traffic, Section 200-52-1, Handicap Parking Spaces, 264 Snyder Street. Any citizens wish to speak?
Motion to close citizens'
Councilwoman
Second.
Williams, Councilman Johnson.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion to adopt on final?
Move.
Second.
Councilman Coley, second by Councilman Williams.
Yes.
On the motion? Seeing none, roll call. Councilman Coley?
Yes.
Councilman Jackson?
Yes.
Councilman Johnson Jr.?
Yes.
Councilwoman Summers Johnson?
Yes.
Councilwoman Williams?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wooten?
Yes.
Council President Eason?
Yes.
Ordinance on introduction and first reading. 1-2020. An ordinance to amend the code of the City of Orange Township, Chapter 200, entitled Vehicles and Traffic, Section 200-52-1, Handicap Parking Spaces, 205 Snyder Street. Is there a motion to adopt on first?
Move.
Councilwoman Williams.
Second.
Councilwoman Wooten.
On the motion? Seeing none, roll call. Councilman Coley?
Yes.
Councilman Jackson?
Yes.
Councilman Johnson Jr.?
Yes.
Councilwoman Summers Johnson?
Yes.
Councilwoman Williams?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wooten?
Yes.
Council President Eason?
Yes.
The final reading will be Tuesday, February 18th, 2020. Consent agenda. All items listed with an asterisk are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. 29 is being removed because it was amended. 30 is being removed, 31 is being removed to vote for postponement to the next meeting. Are there any others?
Council President, you to the clerk, 29, we're not, you're going to,
I'm just going to remove it for a separate vote because we
Okay, gotcha.
amended it.
Which one is that, 29?
29, 2020.
Okay. So it's separate
and
vote.
31 is being postponed, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's being removed.
Well, just so we're clear, you're gonna keep it on the agenda.
I'm keeping it on
so I
agenda,
don't
I'm
have to
just-
submit it
No,
again.
it's gonna be on, it's just
I'm gonna give
postponed.
the additional information to the clerk for distribution.
That's postponed, sir. Yes, sir.
I know, I just wanna make sure that, because the last time we postponed something, it didn't come back.
Gotcha.
Okay.
And that was my fault, not
Okay,
yours.
okay.
Any other items? Okay, so before we go to that, 400-2019 was tabled. So I'm going to read the title. 400-2019, a resolution granting developer designation for Skyview Capital LLC and/or its affiliate B&O Urban Renewal Entity as a developer within the Transit Village District East portion of Central Orange redevelopment area. It was tabled from 12/3, 12/17, 2019, 1/03, 2020. Is there any motion to lift this off the table? Okay, seeing none, it remains tabled. The consent agenda now consists of 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 30, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
Move.
Second.
Councilwoman Johnson and Councilwoman Williams.
On the motion? Seeing none, roll call. Councilman Coley?
Yes.
Councilman Jackson?
Yes.
Councilman Johnson Jr.?
Yes.
Councilwoman Summers Johnson?
Yes.
Councilwoman Williams?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wooten?
Yes.
Council President Eason?
Yes.
29-2020. A resolution authorizing the award of a contract with Nishuane Group LLC, 105 Grove Street, Suite 1, Montclair, New Jersey, 07042, to provide professional planning services for a period of 1 year from January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020, an amount not to exceed $250,000. This resolution has been amended by removing the fourth whereas clause from page 2. Is there a motion to adopt as amended?
Move.
Second.
Councilwoman
Williams?
Williams and Councilman Johnson.
On the motion? Seeing none, roll call. Councilman Coley?
Yes.
Councilman Jackson?
Yes.
Councilman Johnson Jr.?
Yes.
Councilwoman Summers Johnson?
Yes.
Councilwoman Williams?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wooten?
Yes.
Council President Eason?
Yes.
31-2019. A resolution authorizing the memorandum agreement of the negotiations between the City of Orange Township and Reverend Norman Sharif of Deborah Gannett Kendus Gabriel Ethiopian Church located at 136-140 Main Street, Orange, New Jersey, 07050 regarding taxes owed. Is there a motion to postpone to the next meeting?
Move.
Second.
Councilwoman Williams
Second.
and Councilman Johnson.
On the motion? Seeing none, roll call. Councilman Coley?
Yes.
Councilman Jackson?
Yes.
Councilman Johnson Jr.?
Yes.
Councilwoman Summers Johnson?
Yes.
Councilwoman Williams?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wooten?
Yes.
Council President Eason?
Yes.
New business, walk-on resolution.
Council President,
Yes.
excuse me, before you get to the walk-on, could I just put two statements on the record?
All right, point of order, we're going to have our business administrator.
So there were questions raised regarding certain items on the bill list. One, regarding budgeted funds for meetings and events for council people. Those items are budgeted. There is an allowance within the budget, and so the payment of those bills is appropriate. Second, as it relates to the Toys for Tots event, we budgeted for the event supplies, DJ, et cetera. We did not budget, nor did we pay for any toys. So those payments that are on the bill list are also appropriate. They tie directly back to a budgetary appropriation
And
in
also-
both instances.
Until the Toys for Tots were donated by,
Marines and
Marines.
mostly Marines, and then some, but mostly Marines.
The Marines donated truckloads.
And I think they actually reported it at a council meeting.
I also had one other announcement, and that is, I'd like to give a shout out to Officers Cappuccino and Retta. They're two new young officers, and they made a very fruitful and excellent stop of a motor vehicle 2 days ago, and took guns, hollow point bullets, extended magazines off the street in a routine traffic stop. Wow.
Council President,
all right, you want to move on to?
Council President with the new
Yes,
business.
Councilwoman.
Through you to Mr. Hartwick. Regarding the approval of the tax credits, and there was a kind of lopsided, because there was something due to the council, and I know you were having a meeting, any updates on that?
So, I haven't had the meeting yet with the Housing Authority. I hope to have it. My week is jammed, so it's probably gonna be next week. But those items that need to be discussed are the outstanding legal opinion. There are some other things that I'm clearing up for the Housing Authority with regard to old water accounts. That'll be on the agenda. We don't have an executed financial agreement because the mayor has not signed it because the legal opinion hasn't been delivered. So all of those items will be on the agenda. They did get, were awarded an allocation by Trenton for the low and moderate income tax credits. A condition of that award is a pilot agreement or a financial agreement, and that's dependent upon the legal opinion.
And have we made Trenton aware that they are deficient in these items?
We've asked for this on a number of occasions, including the last time they appeared here publicly.
No, have we made Trenton aware that,
Oh, I
because
have
they've
not.
awarded
I
and they're
did not,
deficient?
I did not speak to Trenton. I didn't want to get in the middle of that, but I've made the Housing Authority aware.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Move the agenda?
Resolution 38-2020 WO. A resolution approving a settlement and authorizing the execution of a settlement agreement with the Director, Division of Taxation for the State of New Jersey with respect to settlement of pending litigation. Can I get a motion to walk this item on the agenda?
Move.
Councilwoman
Second.
Williams and Councilwoman Wooten.
On the motion? Seeing none, roll call. Councilman Coley?
Yes.
Councilman Jackson?
Yes.
Councilman Johnson Jr.?
Yes.
Councilwoman Summers Johnson?
Yes.
Councilwoman Williams?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wooten?
Yes.
Council President Eason.
Yes.
Are there any citizens who wish to speak on this item?
Should I explain it?
Yeah, he's going to explain it first.
All right, mine's just information.
So, this came up around 4 o'clock this afternoon. The city had filed what's known as a ratio challenge against the State Division of Taxation. The ratio requirements are that your assessed values must be at least 85% of your actual market values. When we calculated our assessed values, when the state calculated our assessed values at the end of 2019, we were somewhere in the neighborhood of 69 to 70%. We analyzed those, and I want to give credit because it's seriously due. The tax assessor, Chris Murray, and an in-house attorney, Avram White, worked on this, filed the challenge, identified the properties that we petitioned the state to exclude from the ratio calculation. There were 19 properties identified. 16 of them, the state agreed to exclude. By excluding those 16, the actual ratio numbers are up in the neighborhood of the high 80s, possibly even 90%. We're waiting on a final calculation, but we're well over the 85% requirement. Being above the 85% requirement avoids a mandatory revow. So it is a very important process that we undertake to protect taxpayers. And this is an astounding result. Identifying 19 properties, all of which were multifamily sales. The multifamily sale numbers that we're seeing, we've never seen in any market in New Jersey before. A typical multifamily building with 40 units will sell to somebody in the real estate business, and they'll sell at a cap rate of approximately 6-7%. We're seeing sales at cap rates of 1 and 2%. We've never seen that before. The math doesn't add up. And we think that basically those sale prices are generated based on an analysis that's being undertaken by either a hedge fund or a pension fund that is based on future increase in value and not necessarily current value. So around 4 o'clock today, the state agreed to settle the ratio appeal by not including 16 of the identified 19 properties. That brings our ratio in line with where it needs to be and where we thought it should be. And the only reason we have this on the agenda tonight is because the trial in the matter was scheduled for the 30th of January. We have to get this approved before the state will approve it, so they ask, because they're the state, they ask the council to approve it by resolution before they will consider signing off on it. And we couldn't wait until the next meeting because the next meeting is actually after the trial date, and we need to get it into court. So that's why we walked this on. That's the emergent nature. That's the summary of what you're being asked to do and why on such a short time frame. I did tell you that we were filing a ratio challenge on a couple of occasions, so it shouldn't come as a complete shock.
Again, my name is Jeffrey Feld. The most important comment is that we don't have to have a reevaluation, that we got above the 85%. That was my question, because the 72.20. But I guess we'll find throughout the ROPRA whether I'll be able to get, they have numbers, S549, where I'll be able to get the actual location of the properties, so I can figure out what properties we're talking about.
Yeah, I think once the case is actually settled,
You're right.
we can identify the 19 properties.
That's what I would just like to have.
Sure.
Rather than having this code number. Thank you.
Yep.
Motion to close citizen comments?
Second.
All in favor? I'm sorry. Motion by Councilwoman Williams, second by Councilman Wooten. All in favor? Any opposed? Resolution 38-2020. A resolution approving a settlement and authorizing the execution of a settlement agreement with the Director, Division of Taxation for the State of New Jersey with respect to the settlement of pending litigation. Is there a motion to adopt?
Second.
Councilwoman Williams and Councilman Johnson.
On the motion?
Council President,
Councilwoman Williams.
through you to Mr. Hartwick. So, when is the proposed court date?
January 30th.
And is this going to go to settlement at the court date, or prior to court date will be dismissed because the settlement will be presented?
It depends on how long it takes the state to sign the agreement.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Roll call. Councilman Coley?
Yes.
Councilman Jackson?
Yes.
Councilman Johnson Jr.?
Yes.
Councilwoman Summers Johnson?
Yes.
Councilwoman Williams?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wooten?
Yes.
Council President Eason?
Yes. And don't you guys start packing up, because we have an executive closed session.
Resolution 38A, 2020, a resolution to have an executive closed session to discuss personnel matters. Is there a motion?
Move.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Coley, second by Councilman Johnson Jr. On the motion. Seeing none, roll call. Councilman Coley,
Yes.
Councilman Jackson,
Yes.
Councilman Johnson Jr.,
Yes.
Councilwoman Summers Johnson,
Yes.
Councilwoman Williams,
Yes.
Councilwoman Wooten,
Yes.
Council President Eason.
Yes.
Is there a motion to enter into executive session?
Move.
Second.
Councilman Coley, Councilman Johnson.
On the motion, seeing none, roll call. Councilman Coley,
Yes.
Councilman Jackson,
Yes.
Councilman Harold Johnson Jr.
Yes.
Councilwoman Summers Johnson,
Yes.
Councilwoman Williams. Councilwoman Williams stepped out the room. Councilwoman Wooten,
Yes.
Council President Eason.
Would you all like to
Council
take a
President
quick,
Yes.
yes, 5-minute break?
Sure, Council President.
Can I have a motion to end the executive session and reconvene?
Second.
Motion by Councilman Johnson Jr., second by Councilman Coley. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Move.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Johnson Jr., second by
Councilman Summers Johnson?
Council. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting adjourned at 9:22.
Does anybody have an update on Jackie?